Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Easy Mini Painting with me, Christopher Ridge. And we're going to be moving on to the alternate sculpts that you can get for the Resident Evil 2 board game, and we're going to be starting off with all of the police zombies. Now, they're fun because these boys right here, well, they're on fire. So they're going to be pretty interesting to paint. They're going to be mostly the same way. We're going to paint them the same way that we did the regular police zombies that come with the core game. Obviously, we're going to do stuff a little bit different there with the fire. But why don't I just stop talking, and why don't we just get started? Alright, now these guys are going to be painted in a very similar way to how we've already painted the previous police zombies. So we're just going to go ahead and do everything pretty much the same way up to a certain point. And the first thing that we're going to start with is a layer of ash gray as a base coat for all of them. That'll just get a nice single layer on there. And then I also just touched up the bases too with matte black. You can do that before or after, it doesn't matter, just whatever you prefer. And let's start with all of their t-shirts, and to do that we're going to use electric blue. Again, this is the same thing that we did for the previously painted police zombies. And I'll use a slightly smaller brush here, just whatever one you're the most comfortable with, I would say. Don't worry too much about going over either the pants or the fire, because the big thing about these particular zombies right here, these particular police zombies, is that they're on fire. And that's a very, very distinctive look. So, don't worry about dealing with the fire right now. We're actually going to do that as really one of the last things that we do. So, if you can, try to just kind of go around all of the fire whenever you're doing the electric blue for all of the shirts. What if you get a little bit of paint on there? No big deal at all. Same thing with like the belts and the pants and you know, all that kind of stuff. Try to avoid going over those, but if you do get a little bit of paint on those surrounding areas, don't worry too much about it. The only thing is that we're only going to use this one single layer of the ash gray for all of the skin tone, so try not to get any of this blue onto the actual skin of the zombies. That's pretty much the only thing worth knowing. Otherwise, you're just going to go over all of the shirts normally. Alright, so there's one. That's all that you need to do there. Just make sure to get around all sides of it and all that. And again, if you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, where does the fabric end and the fire begins? Just sort of eyeball it. Don't stress yourself out too much over it, and you'll be just fine. So just do that with all four of them and then move on. Oh, luckily these other ones right here that come with it, these are much simpler. These are basically just alternate models for the ones that we've already painted. They're just in slightly different poses, but yeah, you don't need to worry at all about, you know, weird fire effects or anything like that. The only thing that looks like is worth noting is that it looks like there's some exposed skin on the right shoulder right here. So just try to go around that. Looks, well, maybe? You know, it's kind of hard to tell. Actually, you know, I think it's just ripped fabric, so don't even worry about it. Just go over the whole sleeve, and I think that that'll be just fine. There we go, like so. Simple as that. Alright, and there we go. So now we've got our nice electric blue shirts on all of our police zombies. I'm gonna rinse my brush off. Alright, and now we're gonna move on to all of the pants and the hats. And to do that, we're gonna use some deep blue. Very dark blue color, not quite black, but you know, it's again just a very, very dark, maybe a little bit of a gray tint in there. But we're going to use that for the pants and the hats. That's one thing that's a little bit different about these regular Joe looking guys compared to the previous police zombies, is that they are actually wearing hats. I'll just continue using the same brush that I was using. Again, just whatever brush that you're most comfortable with, I would say just continue using that. Don't worry about going over the belts, because we're going to go over those with a darker color in a little bit. Again, similar to the previous sculpts. Alright, so now we just got the pants on one of them, and again, we're just going to go over the hats as well. Now, one thing too is that they've got the sort of like badges on the very tops of their hats. Man, so I have a new phone actually that I'm using to record all my videos with, and the focusing on it is just a little bit more wink wonk. It's just a little bit weird. So if anything is out of focus or not very clear. I apologize for that, but it's just the autofocus on my new recording device here. But hopefully it won't be too bad. Anyway, so we're going to go over the badges on the hats with a gold color later on, because they've all got some badges, you know, just on their, you know, right on their chest there. We'll worry about that later. The other thing too about these particular ones with the hats on is that you can see a little bit of hair underneath their hats. Now, we did paint all of the hair on the previous sculpts because the hair was much more apparent, but we're just going to not bother with that here, because what we're going for are easy, quick, table-ready miniatures. We don't want to focus too much on anything that's too detailed or anything that'll bog down the paint job a little bit too much, and just worrying about a little bit of hair on the side there, I just feel like would kind of take up a little bit more time than it's really worth, so I wouldn't even worry about it. But there you go. That's all that you're looking for right there, is you just want to get the dark hats and the dark pants and the light shirts, and that's all that you're looking for, so we're just going to do that with all of them. All right, so that's it. That gets out all of the pants and the hats. So we've got the basic color scheme down for all of our alternate sculpt police zombies. Next up, we're gonna knock out all of the belts and the shoes, and we're gonna use dark stone for that. Luckily, these don't take up a lot of surface area, so they shouldn't take too long. Because they shouldn't take too long, and because they are a little bit more detailed, please take your time with them. You don't want to rush things. You just want to make sure to get the coverage that you need. Try not to go over the shirts or the pants with this dark stone. It's not going to be a huge deal if you do. Don't worry about it, but just, you know, take your time with it. You're here to have fun. You're here to relax. You're here to unwind. Don't stress yourself out too much over it. Just take your time with it. But yeah, easy as this. You just want to get all of the belts and the various little holsters and gadgets and doohickeys that are on the sides of their belts here. And if you just go over all of it with this dark stone color, that'll be fine. All right, a little bit something like that. All you need is just minimal coverage for the shoes and the belts, and that's pretty much it. And honestly, that's all that you need as far as the core colors for the police zombies. That's it. And then you're going to move on to, you know, your Quickshade, and then you're going to move on to some blood and some little tiny details. But even then, those are pretty straightforward, and we tend to do those after the fact here. So yeah, that's it. Just make sure to get all of the belts, all the shoes. That's it, and then you're going to move on to the next step. All right, so now we've got all of our belts and all of our shoes. We are pretty much done with all of the major stuff. Now, next up, we are just going to touch up all of those badges that they've got everywhere. So we're just going to take some greedy gold and we're just going to dot some gold onto those badges. You can use a really small detailed brush if you want, but I don't think you really need to worry too much about it. I think that you can probably just use a standard little brush here and just get a little tiny dot onto the tip of your brush and just sort of go over the badge really lightly, like so. All right, we'll also get the ones, they've got some on their sleeves, similar to the previous sculpts, and Leon's sculpt. I think that he's got some badges on his shoulders like this. All right, and then we'll just get the ones on the very tops of their hats. All right, a little bit something like that. That's all that you need to do. Again, all you need is just the sort of indication that you're putting some badges on there. Sometimes you just need the indication of stuff. You don't need to worry too much about obsessing over every single little corner of the badge and every single little edge. You just sort of need to get the point across that there's a badge on there, and that's all that you need. You don't need to, you know, hang yourself up on anything or take too long on anything like that. I mean, still take your time, but don't stress yourself out. Sometimes one of the things that's kind of like a sort of, you know, personal journey or a personal struggle to deal with when it comes to painting miniatures is just finishing it, just saying that something is good and just moving on to the next step. Sometimes you get hung up on certain steps, and you don't want to do that. You just want to get the basic indication of things and move right on. All right, I think that the ones that are on fire, it's really just the badge that's on their chest. They don't have the hat, and they don't have the their sleeve where their badge would be is on fire. So, you just need to get the ones on the chest. Like so. That will be it. All right, now I do want these to be completely dry before we move on to the Quickshade, but we are going to be moving on to the Quickshade. That's the next thing that we're doing. Can you focus, please? There we go. Yep. Something like that. Anyway, yeah, so I'm just going to give them a couple of minutes to dry, and then what I'm going to do, well, yeah, I'll give them a couple minutes and I'll be right back. And now all of those guys are nice and dried, so we are going to use our go-to Quickshade, which is Strong Tone. This is what we've used for pretty much... Oh man, was my cap stuck? There we go. This is what we've used for pretty much all of our previous miniatures that we've painted for the Resident Evil 2 board game, and we'll just continue to use this. This will be just fine. Now you may be asking yourself, hey, how come you're doing the Quickshade before you did the fire? That's because I want to do the fire afterward. But we'll get to that when we get to that. When it comes to using the actual Quickshade, just use some big old fat no-name brush right here, something that you don't care about messing up, something that you don't care about, getting the bristles nice and flayed or whatever. And yeah, you're just going to go over the entirety of each miniature with this Strong Tone, like so, and that'll just fill in all of the details. That'll just fill in all of the shadow and all of the gaps, and that'll just make the miniature look a little bit more complete. Like so. You can kind of see that that's already giving him a little bit more shape and a little bit more texture and depth and all that. All right, a little bit something like that. And then as it dries, it'll just sort of form a little bit more and sort of congeal and do everything that you need it to do. All right, so just go ahead and apply an even coat of this Strong Tone to all of the miniatures, and then you want them to be completely dry before you move on to the fire. It's going to be a lot easier for it to be dry. So apply this, let it dry, be back in a little bit. Okay, and now they are all pretty much completely dry. That's essentially what we're looking for right there. Now, let's get the fire going. So, I'm going to take out some lava orange to start us off, and we're going to use that as a base coat for each of the flames. I would continue to use a smaller brush, but not like a super detailed brush by any stretch. And you're just going to go over each little identifiable flame with this lava orange color. And this is just going to be a base coat, because we're actually going to go over it again with an even lighter color, and that will lighten up the fire pretty substantially. So just find each little flame here. I think that the little spot above his forehead is supposed to be a flame. It kind of looks like hair from the front, but when you look at the back, he looks pretty much bald. So I think that he's supposed to be bald, but like the top of his head is on fire. I think that's what's going on here. So I'm going to go over that spot with this orange. All right, a little bit something like that. You can see that that just gets the flame going nice and bright there. And then we're going to lighten that up a little bit with some dry brushing afterwards as well. But knock out the other one as well. All right, a little bit something like that. They look like they are on fire. They look like they are having a good time being on fire. I mean, that might sound a little bit hypocritical, but hey, whatever. So rinse off that brush completely, and then we're going to move on to a dry brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out some Daemonic Yellow, actually, because I feel like fire, like bright fire, has more of like an amber gold color to it. But that's, it's kind of however you want to feel. So there are two ways that you can do this. The way that I'm doing it right now is obviously using the lava orange and Daemonic Yellow. But if you want, in place of the lava orange, you could use any sort of red color, like you could use your red, and then you could dry brush orange over that. And that'll give it a little bit more of like a reddish fire if you want that kind of thing. But if you want more of like a golden amber fire, kind of like, the kind of thing that I see fire as, then do this where you use a base coat of orange and then some Daemonic Yellow. So let me take out my dry brush here, And yeah, we're just going to be doing a typical dry brush technique here. So just take out your dry brush, and if you don't have a dry brush like this one right here, you can just use any sort of flat bristle brush. Let me find an example here. Well, something like this. You could use something that's, you know, semi-flat, but you know, has some nice thickness to it. Again, it doesn't really matter, but if you can, get your hands on an actual dry brush, and just, you know, nudge your brush into your little paint puddle here, just like we do. If you've seen me do dry brushing on this channel, then you are very familiar with it, but if you haven't seen it yet, then I'll just go ahead and show you. So what I do is I just sort of, you know, like I said, nudge my little brush into my paint puddle here, and then I'm actually wiping off most of it, and that's why they call it dry brushing, is because you have such a small amount of paint onto your brush, it's almost dry, like so. You can see that there's some paint on there, but it's not very thick, it's not very wet, it's not glistening, it's just a very small amount of paint. And then you're just going to lightly go over all of the flames with this Daemonic Yellow color, and that will brighten up those flames very substantially, and it'll keep the low recesses of those flames nice and orange, but it will make all of the high points, all of the really, really prominent areas of the fire nice and yellow, like so. Easy as that. Apply it very, very lightly, but also do it with multiple brush strokes. It's not something that you can just do, you know, like, you know, one single brush stroke and then you're done. You're going to need to do multiple strokes, like that, and that will just get that nice even coat on there. And you can do as many coats as you want. You can apply as many strokes, as many whatever as you want. More obviously equals, you know, more yellow, but if you want to retain more of the orange color, then you only need to do 1 or 2 layers. Yeah, dry brushing is a really, really simple technique for getting nice color variety and to sort of give the illusion of focusing on super, super tight details like that. You really don't need to worry about, you know, every single little brush stroke on every single little flame of fire right there. All you need is just a good dry brushing technique here and a good color selection. And again, if you don't like this orange and yellow, what you can do is you can do a base coat of pure red, and then you could do some lava orange on top of that, but that's up to you. It's whatever you want to do. All right, and yeah, there you go. That just gets that fire nice and going. That looks pretty cool. Just make sure to do the backside too. As you can see, he looks a little incomplete back here. All right. And there you go. That's pretty much it. We're gonna also touch up with some blood after we, you know, get the flames nice and finished up there. You can see the difference between these two. You know, one with the yellow, one without. And again, if you want more of this orange sort of color palette, start with red and then go over it with orange afterward. Holy crap. Holy shucks. I just noticed I forgot to get the back of this flame here with the orange color. So why don't I just touch that up really quickly? I think that, yeah, my orange is still a little bit wet. So why don't we just get that really quickly? It shouldn't take too long to dry. So I'll just apply that like so. Yeah, just let that completely dry, and that should only take a minute or two. All right, let's just touch up anywhere else that looks like I might need to get. Let's get the back of this flame a little bit better. All right, and there we go. So now we've got our flaming zombies. Those look beautiful. I like those a lot. I think they turned out great. Okay, I'm gonna rinse off that brush. All right, now after that, we're going to apply our layer of varnish. I would say that this is optional. If you don't have this actual varnish, then it's not a big deal, but I like to apply it just because it helps to sort of blend the colors a little bit better. It also just extends the life of your miniatures a little bit better because the paint doesn't rub off as easily. It's just up to you, but I like to do this for my own sake. And I just like to use a big old ratty no-name brush for that, just because, you know, you just want to get a nice even layer on there. And we're just going to apply this over the entirety of each miniature. Again, this is optional. If you don't want to do it, you can just skip right on to the next step. But I'm just going to apply this evenly across each one. and then move on. Oh, I obviously let them completely dry before moving on, but yeah, that's it. So just apply this evenly, let it dry, then move on to the next step. And if you don't want to do this, then just skip this and move right on to the next step. Okay, so now that they are completely dry, we're going to move on to the very last thing, and that's just that we're going to bloody them up a little bit. So we're going to take out some glistening blood, and we'll just apply some blood here and there to some various spots. I don't think I want to go too crazy with it, just because I feel like these zombies are a little bit less, you know, bloody and gory, and they're just sort of like generic. I mean, we'll still add some blood, but I think that they're just sort of like, you know, fresh zombies that maybe didn't see too much action. And then I don't want to put too much on these guys just because I don't want it to be too visually busy with, you know, all of the fire that's on them. So what I'll do is I'll just take out some, it doesn't really matter. I like to use kind of like ratty old brushes when it comes to the blood, to the blood, because I like to use these flayed bristles at the edge, at the tip of the brush, just because that can create some interesting effects. One thing that I like to do is I do tend to just kind of go over the mouths completely with blood, make it kind of look like they were recently munching on somebody or something. And what I do is I just kind of splotch, you know, just kind of splatter a little bit of paint, you know, in small little dots, kind of like so, just sort of, you know, applying it like that, and then that makes it look a little bit more like a splatter kind of thing, and also just looks a little bit more organic and less artificial. It looks like his arm is pretty chewed up, so why don't we go ahead and just bloody up his arm a fair amount here. Yeah, and you can just kind of do whatever's best, whatever you feel is best with the blood. You can apply as much or as little as you want. The only thing that I will say, and I've said this in pretty much all of the previous videos involving blood, which is that less is more. If you just go a little bit too crazy with it, it can become a little bit too distracting, and it just doesn't quite look right. So don't go too nuts, but, you know, also don't be afraid to just hold back too much either. Yeah, I think that for these guys, for just the standard zombies here, these standard police zombies, I think that I'm just going to get some blood on their hands, an arm, and on their mouth right there, and I think that that's pretty much it. I think I kind of want him to be a little less bloody. All right, a little something like that for the standard zombies right there. And then, yeah, like I said, you don't want to do anything too nuts with these guys, just because, again, like I said, they've already got all the fire on them, so you don't want to do anything too distracting. Like I said, I will go ahead and get the blood on the mouths, but that will pretty much be it. Just be careful not to get any blood onto the flames, because, you know, obviously that doesn't really make any sense. There we go, a little bit something like that. And I think that will pretty much do it. All right, well, there you go, everybody. Those are the alternate sculpts for the police zombies in the Resident Evil 2 board game. Like I said, they are painted pretty much the same way as the regular sculpts. The only thing that makes a little bit of a difference is just how you deal with that fire. And like I said, if you want that sort of like yellow, amber, golden color that I used here, then go ahead and use the combination of orange and yellow like I did. But if you want a little bit more of a red sort of a red bloody fire or something like that, then you can use a base coat of pure red and then do a dry brushing coat of lava orange after that. So that's it. If you like the video, go ahead and throw it a like. If you want to see the rest of the alternate sculpts for the Resident Evil 2 board game, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to knock out all of them and then see what we can do from there. Potentially get some more expansions. Don't know. We'll just have to see. But I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.